3, 2, 1. My doctor told me I might be an alcoholic if I drink every day. Thank fuck for that, I said. I only drink at night. Ha ha ha, alcoholism is funny. Speak. Speak. Today we're talking about the love-hate relationship alcoholics have with alcohol, suggested by Eve over on the Patreon. Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bat Country. You get out of the shop, little scene stealer, go away. I remember being about 14 years old, hanging around the back streets and back alleys in the very normal, ordinary town I grew up in, near Winchester in Hampshire. Just a very ordinary place, very normal. It was a very cold Saturday night, and all of my friends were drinking very cheap cider. But this particular night, early in my drinking career, I had gone for something different. They were all drinking like White Lightning or Frosty Jacks, really dead cheap gut rot cider. Even saying the name Frosty Jacks makes me heave a little bit, the memory of it. It tasted like rotten apples soaked in horse piss. Awful stuff. But we loved it at the time, and that was the beginning of our love-hate relationship with alcohol. We largely loved it because you could buy 3 litres of the stuff. It was 7.5%, and you could buy 3 litres of that for like £1.50. There used to be, you could gauge the prosperity of an area in England by the amount of Frosty Jacks and White Lightning bottles that were left around in the gutters and in every public park. And I loved the routine of it as well. Every Saturday at 14, 15 years old, I got up at 4:30 in the morning and headed down to my weekend job in the local bakery, where I would do a long and kind of exhausting shift. And at the end of the shift, I would be handed £32.50 in a little brown envelope. And all of that money was for buying Bounty bars and cider or alcohol on that Saturday. That little bit of pocket money was alcoholic freedom, and I loved every second of it. But this particular Saturday night that I recall, I wasn't drinking cider. I had somehow acquired a 350 milliliter bottle of Famous Grouse, a kind of very cheap, widely available Scotch whiskey. We were hanging around some old garages. We were on the roofs of this row of old garages. And it was the first time that I remember that I had chosen to drink an alcoholic drink other than cider. We grew up on cider, and it was usually cider. But this particular night, I had acquired through various kinds of subterfuge this little bottle of whiskey. And because I had largely been drinking cider, I drank the whiskey like it was cider, by which I mean fast. I just chugged the whole thing down in like 2 or 3 swigs. And it burned in my throat, and it made me cough and choke and splutter. And for 5 minutes I felt wretched. But then a few minutes later, I started to enjoy the flush, the warmth in my cheeks, and the way that my vision had suddenly become kind of blurry and slowed. Something was different within me, and I loved that. The cold air suddenly felt soft, and all of my adolescent anxiety was melting away as a result of this magical little potion called Famous Grouse. And I didn't care what anyone thought. All of my introversion was just washed away. And there was a TV advert on at the time for Famous Grouse, in which this kind of, it's from the very crap days of computer graphics, an era that I still love today. And the advert was just of this grouse walking onto the screen and standing on one leg, and then the copy read finely balanced or perfectly balanced, something like that. And it had this piece of music that went with it. Dun 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 dun. for about, I don't know, for the rest of the night basically, I walked up and down the length of the roofs of this row of garages, just singing that out loud and walking around like a famous grouse. Until all of my friends caught up in their drunkenness and found it as funny as I did. All of my nervousness and my anxiety was gone, my awkwardness, and I was suddenly funny. And people were joining in and made me feel popular. I laughed louder and I fell over, and it felt great. It felt like love. And in fact, obviously, I loved that feeling immediately. And now just skip forward, let's say 20 years, and I no longer love it unconditionally. Now, I desperately need it, like an IV drip in my arm, and I can't function, I cannot live without this fluid. I hate it now, and I hate myself for loving it. And I love it even though I spend my mornings wrapped around a toilet bowl, and I spend my evenings crying big, pointless, burning tears about the state of my life. I hate it and I want to stop, and yet at every opportunity I will cram as much of it down my throat as I possibly can, as quickly as I can. I love it, but I hate it. I need it to live, but I want to die. That's how I feel. I love the first drink, but I can never have just one. I have to have all the drink. And I'll just go until I can't drink anymore. And if I stop, which I want to do, if I stop, I will just hate myself more until I have another first drink. It just doesn't make sense. So let's talk about it today. Let's talk about the love-hate relationship alcoholics have with alcohol, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone explain it well. So I'm going to have a go at it right now. Before we really get into it, a couple of show notes about the channel. If you find this channel mildly interesting or mildly useful, do give it a like and a subscribe so that YouTube knows what I'm doing here is kind of okay. If you really like it and you want to be suggesting topics for me to discuss, or you want to have a more open dialogue with me, then head over to the Patreon, where there is a community of sober and nearly sober people who would be happy to have you. I should also mention that I have started a second channel. So if you really like me in particular, God help you, there is now a second channel where I will be posting stuff that doesn't really fit in with the main Bad Country channel. That channel is called Wealth and Hell Being. There will be a link in the description. Anyway, back to Bargain Hunt with David Dickinson. So it doesn't seem to matter how much damage alcohol causes in our lives. Some of us will miss it when it's gone. There's a physical withdrawal process, but also an emotional withdrawal, in which we come to accept the fact that we were deeply dependent on a toxic substance. And that period can go on for some time. No alcoholic wakes up after a serious binge and immediately thinks, okay, thank fuck that's over. Now it's time to be sober. It's sober o'clock now, no more. There is a period of yearning. And if you have that sense of loss, that sense of yearning when you quit alcohol, I hope it's some consolation that you know that you're not alone in that. In fact, it's pretty common that we have an almost physical grieving period for alcohol. A lot of us grieve for alcohol. We grieve for our relationship with alcohol because it's been with us a long time. For a very long time, alcohol has been a very big part of us. It's like an extra limb. You can't quite imagine life without it. So the natural question to ask is, why is it like that? Why is our relationship with alcohol like that, like a codependency? Why do we have such a love-hate relationship with alcohol? What is behind that conflicting emotion? Well, it can be a lot of things, and it's slightly different for everyone. But whoever you are and whyever you're drinking, I can kind of sum it up like this. We use alcohol as a regulator. For a while, alcohol increases dopamine, it has a calming effect, it reduces anxiety, and it even reduces threat perception, right? That's why a lot of us with histories of trauma rely on alcohol so much, because that sense of trauma can lead us to believe that there are threats all around. Alcohol is very good at removing that layer of threat perception. For a lot of people with anxiety or with trauma histories or depression, alcohol feels like relief. And as any alcoholic will tell you, relief is the most powerful form of reinforcement. To an alcoholic, a drink is like being able to breathe out after a period of holding your breath. But this is negative reinforcement, and the relief that you're feeling is artificial. For example, you're not experiencing the kind of relief that comes with dealing with a problem. The sense of relief you're feeling is of no longer being aware that you have a problem, and that is far more dangerous. I'm of the opinion that some of the things that we feel which drive us to drink are good for us. So feelings of anxiety and feelings of fear are evolutionarily designed to keep us safe, right? And when you drink to hide from those feelings, what you're doing is rather like if you're driving and you see your engine light come on and you choose to solve it by removing the bulb. Okay, you're no longer aware of the problem, but the problem didn't go away. In fact, it's getting worse. You can just no longer see it. That's what alcohol does. And in that way, in a very strange way, in that way, alcohol is a little like love, because love can also be blinding. You can also fail to spot negative and destructive patterns when you feel love. And if love is a cycle of essentially dopamine rewards, then it has even more in common with alcohol. Hence the beginning of the love-hate relationship we ultimately have. Not to mention, for a lot of us, alcohol is a little bit like a surrogate caregiver. It soothes us. It tells us that everything's going to be okay. And when somebody reinforces what you need to hear in that manner, you can mistake the resulting feeling as love. The love you might have for a caregiver. Alcohol becomes an object of attachment because it offers that relief. It is immediately effective. It quiets intrusive thoughts and makes us feel warm and safe. Like alcohol is a safe partner for us. And if you're the kind of person who feels safe in alcohol, like alcohol offers safety and security, then that minority of us who feel that way, we don't just drink alcohol, we develop a relationship with alcohol. And that relationship is a real one to us, a truly emotional relationship. That relationship is emotionally very real to an alcoholic. I remember longing, yearning for alcohol when I didn't have it in the way that I might yearn or long for a romantic partner. I remember the thrill of finding an unusual, like a favorite alcohol in an unexpected place. Like whenever I found a bottle of VAT 69 whiskey in China was a cause of celebration. I would hold the bottle with something like lust and satisfaction. A whole amount of projecting emotions onto this inanimate and frankly suicidally dangerous fluid. It was like love, like a destructive kind of love, like an obsessive kind. But soon, if you are the kind of person who is capable of feeling like this, that sense of love, that love for the first drink, that love you feel for the buzz you can get in early drinking, well, unfortunately, at some point it transfers, it evolves into dependence. That doesn't happen for everybody, but for those of whom it is possible to have an alcohol dependency, the minority of people who drink, then that dependency is a real danger. In fact, it's inevitable. As our tolerance to alcohol increases, so we rely on it more for that hit of dopamine. And think about that. Think about what's happening there. Your brain is no longer producing natural dopamine at a normal rate because you're supplementing it with so much alcohol. So with lower levels of natural dopamine in your body, you turn to the alcohol more to replace it, to get that fix of dopamine. When Homer Simpson says alcohol is both the cause of and solution to most of life's problems, he is being accurate. That is a true statement, because by absolutely hijacking your dopamine reward system, by reducing your ability to produce it naturally, and then to make you crave alcohol, it is both the cause of and the solution to your dopamine problem. Alcohol is correcting a problem it itself created. It is taking over your brain. And soon, once you cross over that imaginary threshold into dependence, you're no longer drinking to feel good. You're drinking to avoid feeling bad. You're not drinking to make yourself feel better. You're drinking to stop yourself feeling worse. Congratulations, you have a drinking problem. But at this stage in alcoholism, you still have a lot of love for alcohol, or you are refusing to blame alcohol for all the consequences you're beginning to feel. You don't yet hate it. That will come soon. The pattern of the love-hate dichotomy in alcohol is relatively predictable. It's a pattern amongst alcoholics. And a transition point comes soon after dependency. It's when the consequences begin to happen. Chronic alcohol use has consequences, and they happen quickly. Your work will suffer, your relationships suffer, your health always sucks, and you feel like you're dying all the time. That's my overriding memory of the later stages of my alcoholism, was one continuous feeling that I was about to die. Who would choose that? Who would choose to be in that relationship? And with all of that, with those mounting consequences, there is an internal shift, a kind of cognitive dissonance, in which you no longer say, I want this alcohol. You start to say, this alcohol is destroying my life. And yet, those two completely contradictory thoughts can live quite comfortably side by side in an addict's mind. That is the very nature of the love-hate contradiction in alcoholism. The fact that we need the thing, we desperately, emotionally need the thing that is very obviously killing us. Soon enough, that dissonance becomes too much to reconcile, and you start to feel shame. Why am I like this? Why can't I stop doing this to myself? Why am I like this? That is an expression of shame. You are ashamed of who you are. And notice that shame is different from guilt. Guilt can come later. Guilt, here's the difference between shame and guilt for an alcoholic. Guilt is saying, I did something bad. Shame is saying, I am something bad. I am bad. Not I did something bad. I myself am bad. That's the difference. And that feeling of shame, well, we only know one cure, don't we? Plug. Now, with the shame and with the consequences, the love we initially felt for alcohol really starts to turn to hatred. Hatred of alcohol and also self-hatred. The two are intertwined with each other. We hate who we are. We hate the lost opportunities, the broken promises, the disappointed loved ones. We hate the trail of destruction that we leave in our wake. And we can't ever face it. All we can do is retreat back into the bottle, and we hate ourselves for doing it. We don't even enjoy drinking. We don't even want to do it, and we do it anyway. It's like an abusive relationship, and we will go to great lengths to blame anything but the alcohol, including blaming ourselves. Why am I like this? Why do I deserve this? I do deserve this. I need to do this to myself. I am responsible for this. It is like an abusive relationship. And that contradiction of loving something which is so obviously killing us is the very intrinsic nature of a love-hate relationship. And it is only for some of us, for that small minority of really chronic alcoholics, it's only when there is no love left at all, only hatred, that we can really begin to break free. Okay, that's all for today. As I mentioned, this video was a request by one of my Patreon subscribers, so head over there if you want to suggest topics, because there's a good chance I might make it happen for you. Thank you for watching, and as always, good luck out there.